Welcome to Comic Book Corner. I'm Dan Delatorre. Some sad news before as we begin this segment here. We lost two giants in pop culture. One was a sports figure, and one was a science fiction figure. The first was Nichelle Nichols from the Star Trek universe. A pillar, to say that the least. She was a groundbreaking actress who started out in Star Trek, the original series. Actually, was ready to quit. She didn't really care for being on that show. Then she meets a gentleman by the name of Dr. Martin Luther King, who says, that I am very careful with what I show my children. This is one of the few shows that I do show my children. Please stay on. And he convinced her to stay on as Lieutenant Uhura on that series. I had the absolute pleasure of meeting her in 2017 at the San Jose Comic Con. She couldn't be more lovely or gracious. She will be missed, and she had an absolute stellar career. The other person that we had lost was a sports figure named Bill Russell, legendary basketball player, and very much an activist in after his career, an activist for civil rights, a champion for that cause. Bill Russell was, again, a legend. I compare him to people like Michael Jordan and, I'm drawing a blank on the 76ers great, Dr. Julius Erving. That's who I'm thinking about here. Bill Russell was 88 years old, and Nichelle Nichols, who we also lost, was 89 years old. We respectfully move on to our shout-out segment here, and we love everyone on this channel. And I made sort of the rounds, if you will, the last week or so on a number of shows. I had the pleasure, while you, my colleagues here were at the Comic-Con in San Diego, I had the pleasure of meeting two people, one of the shows that I sponsor, and that's the Comic Book Canon Show. Jeff and Chris here. Jeff is on the East Coast. He flew in for work reasons, and Chris is out in the Sacramento area. So we met at A1 Comics, and it was the first time I was able to meet both gentlemen. It was an absolute pleasure. We were doing some live information as it came out at the Comic-Con. It was just a great, fun time. Check out the Comic Book Canon Show, which is every Sunday at 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern. The next shout out was the Tony Sanders Show, which is, let's go to Spine Six. I was on last Saturday with my good friend Sith Lordley. Sith and I hit it off as friends, and I love being on his show. It's such a fun show that if you have a very long week, it's a great stress relief because you never know what's going to come on. It's a fun show, informative show. Check out Spine Ticks every Saturday at 8 o'clock Pacific, 11 Eastern. Next would be the Tony Sanders Show. And I was on this previous Friday. This has been another one of my homes, if you will. Tony has one of the most interesting comic shows on YouTube. It's comic and wrestling based, so you sort of compete if you've never seen the show. Anyone in the chat, by the way, can get on the show with your collection here. I play two characters. I play a character called the Ancient One, sort of a mystic wizard, and this character here called I'm the attorney for the hunt. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. And check out the Tony Sanders Show every other Friday at 8 o'clock Pacific, 11 Eastern. One other show I wanted to shout out. I've never been on this show, but I saw it last week, and it's David from Comic Book Investments. Now, what David did, well, for one, he's an absolutely great source of information. He's very locked into the comic market, and we'll be talking about the market in just a moment. But he did a a profile on the book by this gentleman here at the bottom, Dr. Frederick Wortham. He was the man who produced the book, The Seduction of the Innocent. And David does a profile on just how destructive that particular book and the movement he started was that literally almost destroyed the comic industry single-handedly. When I watched that documentary, there are things I didn't realize, and you almost wanted to bring yourself to tears as you see these comics burned. It was very, very surreal. And we might just in fact, we will have a conversation about this on the next episode because it ties into the subject matter. But check out David from Comic Book Investments, another wonderful member of the community. Let's now move to a very difficult subject, and that's the economy. Last Thursday, the Commerce Department reported its gross domestic product output, and it was in the negative territory, 0.9 negative growth. That's not good for the second quarter. The first quarter was 0.3 negative growth. That means we're actually in an official recession. That coupled with high inflation that we're having is what people are suggesting is stagflation. This is not good, people. This is not good whatsoever. And the sad thing is the media is not really talking about this for whatever reason. They're hesitant to say the word recession. They're saying things like it's a supposed recession or possible recession. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't possibly pay 20% more to my grocery bill and 70% for my energy needs. This is a very, very bad indicator that will lead us into next year. Now, the sad thing is, this is a comic show, not a political show, but you're hearing more accurate information regarding the economy on this little show than you are your national broadcast. But this comes back to the comic market because, again, in 2021, the comic market celebrated over $9 billion of transactions. That is, again, not a small market. What this means for the comic market is sort of a mixed bag because while the deep grails like the Amazing Fantasy 15s, Hulk 1s, and the Golden Age classics from Action Comics #1 and so forth are holding their own, even moving up a little bit, some comics are still going down in value, even Silver Age books. The ones that are hurting the most seem to be the more modern books because they're very plentiful and easy to get. Now, the thing is, some of these books are, again, holding their own, and the reason why is this. Those comic books, let's say I have a Fantastic Four #12. It's a low-grade 1.5 CGC. Even though it's a low grade, it's a very desirable book, but it's also a tangible asset that people want to have in their collection. So people are moving their cash, which is becoming less and less in value, into things like comic books, property, even automobiles, because again, even the used car market has accelerated because of supply chain issues. So keep a close eye as you continue to buy with comics, because again, they are holding their own. But I still recommend bronze and silver is the primary source of what you should be getting into because they have long lasting hold. But the problem with comics is that the market is shrinking because the economy is going down. If you had, let's say, 100% of the market people buying and selling, now you have maybe 80% or 70% of the people that are able to buy as their jobs are secure or they have the savings that they wish to invest in. That's fine, but the days of 2020, 2021 are behind us because, again, we're going to very much a serious downturn. So please be very, very careful. As Azores is pointing out, the deep blue chip grails are the ones you should focus in on if you can get your hands on them. Let's move on to my review of the Thor: Love and Thunder movie. Now, it's been about a month, so it's okay to bring up any spoilers if you haven't seen it. It was an exceptional movie. I think the MCU hit the mark on this. It was who was it here? Christian Bale, who played the lead role, who played Gore the God Butcher. The movie starts with him, and he's in a desolate area. It looks like it's dried out from drought and famine, and he is holding his daughter, who is dying of either starvation or whatever else is wrong with her, and finally dies in his arms. As I said during the Moon Knight review, the ultimate nightmare for any parent is that for your child to die right in front of you. You simply never recover. And he has to bury her by himself because there's no one else around as his civilization seems to have died off. But another thing that struck me as very, very powerful was that this was a person of faith, deep faith. And as a person of faith myself, which is something I rarely talk about, is a very private thing. I don't share it with anyone else unless you want to. If you believe, you believe. But one of the tenets of faith is your long-lasting faith. If you are tested, how do you hold up under this test? This man holds up 100% because even though he has literally lost everything, including his family, he still has never given up the faith to the gods that he prays to. And what happens is he finally meets these gods as he sees this sort of oasis, crawls to them, he still gives thanks for him being alive. And he has the ultimate shock where the gods were literally laughing at him, thinking he's just this minor being that they could simply step on. And this is with this incredible loss and this incredible shock that this character goes through, I think it was a wonderful transition for him to be Gore the God Butcher, given this power by the Necrosaur that happened to be next to him. They didn't explain how this all happened. But I thought Christian Bale played an exceptional role in this movie. The movie was very, very fun and well played by Natalie Portman and Chris Hemsworth, two excellent actors. I mean, they play so well off each other. Natalie Portman is such a lovely woman, very beautiful and very talented. It was another thing that that struck me was that she was suffering from cancer. And anyone who knows people that have suffered through that or any other deadly disease, it's a very, very difficult thing to go through. She plays it exceptionally well. One question I have, though, is the hammer Mjolnir reappears in bits and pieces as it was destroyed in Thor, the second or third movie. I forget which one it was. It was broken apart by Thor's sister, Hela. And the bits and pieces reform, and Natalie Portman's character is able to wield it. And it's very cool how, as she throws it, it breaks up in little pieces that are virtually indestructible and then reforms. But the question I had was, what happened to the intact Mjolnir hammer that Thor had got in the Avengers movie? So he gave that to Captain America. He took it back in time, and I thought he brought it back with him. Anyway, that's a question for another day. So that's one of those little interesting things. But when the Gore the God Butcher begins on his rampage, Thor, no longer having Asgard, seeks help, and he goes to Olympus to find this character, Zeus, played brilliantly by Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe is a veteran actor. What struck me about Olympus was it was far different than when I grew up with the comics, because Olympus, like Asgard, was a group of warriors, and they couldn't wait for the next battle for glory and honor and that sort of thing. This was a group of self-important, self-indulging, recluses. All they cared about was drinking and sex and what was the next party they could go into. And when Thor asked them for help, Zeus basically says, you know what, you're on your own. We're totally safe and secure in this world that they've created for themselves. And that struck me as a bit odd and a bit disappointed, to be quite honest with you. There is a scene where Thor supposedly kills Zeus, but of course he is resurrected at the end of the movie, which I'm glad, because I didn't want someone as talented as Russell Crowe to go away. I'd like to see him again, because again, at the end of the movie, this is also no spoiler, Hercules does show up. Hercules is cast by this gentleman here, a man I know very little about, Brett Goldstein, but I think he's going to be an exceptional addition to the MCU once that finally gets going here. And again, check out my last picks of the week regarding Hercules picks. But I think this is going to be a great chemistry between the two of them, because Hemsworth has said openly he likes to stay as the Thor role, which is great. So that means that there's a number of movies ahead of us, because both men are still young enough, and we can enjoy their movies for some time. Speaking of the MCU, let's talk about the direction of the MCU. It seems to me, as an older collector and as an experienced collector, it is becoming harder and harder to predict what direction they're going into. Now, the examples I use here is when the MCU really got started was this movie here, the first Iron Man from Robert Downey, starring Robert Downey Jr. in 2008. This was a brilliant take on the first Iron Man. It dovetailed perfectly with Tales of Suspense 39, the beginning of Iron Man's origin, and all the things that led up to the classic red and gold armor. My disappointment was I liked Terrence Howard as James Rhodes. I would like for him to stay as James Rhodes in the following movies, but they didn't. They had a change, but it is what it is. But that was a brilliant and successful movie which launched the MCU. Now, my concern is this. If the MCU starts to stray from their original storyline, which again is the Silver, Bronze, and Copper Age, they're running a huge risk. Case in point, Iron Man 3. This is to the right is Ben Kingsley, who played the Mandarin, or at least we thought was the Mandarin at the beginning of Iron Man 3. That movie had me. Ben Kingsley, again, a veteran actor, and they love to play villains. He would have been the perfect Mandarin for a long time. Why they did a switch at the end was, I blame the director. It was it wasn't who directed the first movie from the Iron Man role? Not Paltrow. What's his name? Anyway, he directed Iron Man 1 and 2, but they chose a new director for Iron Man 3 who made a horrible mistake. They chose these, I don't know, Molten Men people. I don't know who these people were. But even though the movie made tremendous amounts of money, the movie as a story bombed. And I've seen it once. I will never see it again because I was so disappointed. The Mandarin was a mainstay character. We need mainstay characters in the MCU, and now that character no longer exists, and they did a horrible job trying to explain that in the Shang-Chi movie, this is where the MCU can get into real trouble, by straying away from the path that is already set up upon them thanks to Stan Lee, Kirby, and the Marvel bullpen. the Silver Age broke the mold. They had, when Stan Lee and Kirby did what they did, they began an explosion in comic book interest. And that was the foundation that they moved into the Bronze Age and even the Copper Age. But they never forgot their origins from the Silver Age, and that's where they had success. When they lost me I was a loyal purchaser of Marvel comics until the mid '90s, because when the mid '90s began, they began to go in a very different direction, and they completely ignored their foundations of the Silver, Bronze, and Copper Age. And the comics are more expensive, and to me, they simply weren't that interesting. The MCU is something we are counting on for a number of reasons, including speculation and entertainment. If they stick to the path that's already set for them, they will continue to have success. And I think Iron Man's 1 and 3 are probably one of the best examples of that. Hopefully they're listening, and hopefully we will continue to be entertained for years and decades to come. Let's get to our picks of the week, but before we do, I'd like to bring our good friend Phil Cowan, who will be on the show, by the way, at some point. When I was in Sacramento, I also ran into Phil because he's from that area as well, and he's retired and wants to get into his first comic picks. He's been putting his toe in the water, but he didn't purchase anything until I showed up and sort of helped him along. But I give credit to Phil because he was onto something. This is a man of good instincts, and I want to show you the first pick that he got here. So let's go to our picks of the week. And because we had talked about the San Diego Comic-Con, one of the exciting shows that's coming out is the Daredevil movie. Phil has had an interest and fascination in the Silver Age Daredevil covers, and he is definitely onto something. So to the left is Daredevil number 42. We both got one. They had a nice copy at A1 Comics. By the way, shout out to A1 Comics in Sacramento. If you need a good, reliable source for comics, their grading is excellent. They're usually very generous. In other words, if they'll say the comic's a 4.0, it's usually a 5.0. That's just the way they do things. The prices are reasonable. Check out A1 Comics. They have 3 locations in the Sacramento area. But that is the first comic that Phil got. I forget what we got. There was one other that we got. So he's finally on his way, and Phil will be on the show. He's a very entertaining person and just a wonderful friend. To the right, Stiltman, as we already mentioned on the show, and that is Daredevil, I believe, number 8. And I had one years ago. I'm on the market for it, a bit of a pricey book. But since the Daredevil series, and I'm suspecting because we have Charlie Cox playing Daredevil, I think this is a winner. And I think these Silver Age books are very, very underpriced. Our next book is Daredevil number 12. Oh, we skipped over here. Where'd we go here? Oh, Daredevil 16 and Daredevil 17. Of course, the number 16 is extremely expensive. It's a gorgeous cover. Probably the better priced one is the one to the right, Daredevil 17. But look at the cool, Spider-Man light reflection on the wall there. These are fun, very underrated stories. Just get them for the cover price, but I don't think you can go wrong with any of these. Next we have Daredevil. We should be 12 now. Ian, what's next on our list? No, we went to we're going to go to Frogman. We're sort of out of order here, but that's all totally fine. Daredevil 25. There's the first appearance of Frogman. Everyone's having a little bit of fun with that, but apparently this is his father in the comics. Actually, quite reasonable to get this, and I think we might see this particular villain in the Daredevil movie, perhaps even the She-Hulk movie. To the right is a really gorgeous copy, hard to get in high grade because it's a black cover. Thor number 30. I don't have this one. These are all on my list too to get, but again, I'm just for the story line, I would definitely get your hands on these. Next we have should be Daredevil 37. Ian, what do we have next? Yeah, Daredevil 37. Again, another gorgeous copy, black background with Dr. Doom. And so that anything with Doom in it is absolutely exceptional and something you should get your hands on, even low grade, just for the story value. And to the right, I have a high grade of this one, Daredevil 43, the first meeting of Daredevil and Captain America. Just a fun story. And again, Daredevil, I think, is going to be a mainstay in the MCU for some time. Next, we have Daredevil 52, and I believe this is the first the first meeting between Daredevil and the Black Panther, with the Panther coming back in the MCU. Coupled with Daredevil. I think it's simply a matter of time before these two get together. And I could be wrong, but I believe this is their first appearance, and I think very reasonably priced. To the right This is one of the few, and I don't mean to insult the man, but I've never been a fan of Steve Gerber, the writer, but he did a fine job in Daredevil 99. Now, this is a crossover with Hawkeye and Daredevil. This is when Hawkeye leaves the Avengers. He wants to regain his flame with the Black Widow. Matt Murdock has nothing to do with this, and there was a fun comedic fight that they have. It's a fun story, and it continues on in Hulk 166 and then Defender 7. But again, this is just all Daredevil run. And you can even go with the the first, I don't know, 150, 140 issues of the Daredevil run. I think they're extremely undervalued, and I'd start looking into them as soon as you can. And the last one I picked up for myself, and this has nothing to do with Daredevil, I found this at A1 Comics, and it's Captain America number 106. That struck me, that was clearly a cover purchase. That is, to me, the most gorgeous Jack Kirby Captain America cover I've ever seen. I mean, Jack Kirby has some brilliant art, but that one really, really struck me. If you can find that in a nice, crisp, mid to high grade, I would get your hand on it, just again to say you have a gorgeous, gorgeous cover. And there's that Daredevil 12 that we started off with. And I mention that because there's I don't know if that's the first meeting with Daredevil and Kazar. I think Kazar is also going to be joining the MCU at some point. He had a lot of history in the MCU. I think I would not sleep on any Kazar appearance moving forward. In the next episode, guys, what we're going to do is take a look at something that's bothered me for the longest time. What is the Marvel Silver Age? What is the Marvel Bronze Age? There's been classifications by people that I truly don't think understood when those ages began and ended. I think there needs to be a reclassification with that, plus a description of what the Silver Age actually is and what it meant. Because history has told us, if you don't know where you've been, you don't know where you are. Everyone, thanks for joining us. For the Ian Hoodrat Network, I'm Dan De La Torre, and this is Comic Book Corner.